Turn on the light here. All right. What's happening, guys? Ken here, and today we are going to go through Ships, Visual Encyclopedia. And this one says more than 1,000 color illustrations. And this is a used book that I got because I'm doing research on pirate ships and pirates. This is written by David Ross, and it's from Amber Publishing, amberbooks.co.uk. So this is a used book that I got because I was getting a ton of books, so wanted to save some money, start buying used. And again, I was doing research on pirate ships and pirates, and part of that is studying the different kind of ships. So I really got into ships, and I was trying to grab every book on ships that I could find, and this is one of the books that I got. And this probably won't be as useful for me for my story because I was focused more on pirate ships. So we've got introduction. This actually covers a lot of modern ships in general anyways. So ships types to 1899. So this one covers a lot of the early ships, which this is probably what's going to be more useful for me for my book that I'm working on. So it talks about the different types of ships, what the advantages are of these ships. Some of them are designed for speed, some of them designed for storing large bulk things that they're going to transfer over, supplies, things like that. Some of them are designed for battle. And this is actually a really thick book. It's about 448 pages at the last page, so it's a lot of, and the cool thing about this that I like, probably the reason why I bought it, I was attracted to this book, is because it had a lot of drawings and a lot of pictures. And if you're an artist, that's going to be very interesting and useful for you for references and things like that. There's stuff on the internet for this kind of thing, but it's just something different when you actually have the book and you can look through it. So I love the cross sections where it shows you right here the different levels of the ship, because oftentimes you're looking at a ship and you can only see things above water. You're not seeing what's under the water, and it's important when you're illustrating, you're drawing it, to know where things are stored, what the different rooms are, different cabins where the privateers sleep, where they put their prisoners. All these different things become important for you, because as you're creating your world, you're illustrating your characters, and they're moving around this vessel, which is basically their home where they live. So it's kind of important to know where everything is placed and what it could look like. And by looking at a book like this, you're getting ideas, getting inspired of this world and immersing yourself. So cool thing about this is it even talks about the different specifications, how many guns each has, the type of rigging. For example, this one says single mast with fighting top, square sail. It says dimensions not known, displacement 300 tons, and it says type sailing warship. This one says type transport galley, type sailing warship, adapted sailing warship. This one is also a sailing warship. So it gives you an idea. And actually, this is cool. It shows you the era, the time that they were created, or they were built. So this one right here, it says 1338. So it tells you in time and history when the ships were being made. So again, cross section, really cool. It even talks about the different parts, right? When you're watching a movie, you see all the different parts, but you don't know exactly what they do, or where they are in context of the ship itself, because you're focused on the action, the characters, and things like that. So when you're illustrating different things, it's kind of good to have an idea of what these things are, what they're created for. So even like something like this, signals. Flag signaling was limited compared to later times. The royal standard was hoisted to indicate the pre-arranged battle stations should be taken up. So little details like that it'll add to, when you're creating your own stories, it'll add to the details, give you an idea of how things are supposed to be. Again, these cross sections are really fascinating. It shows you that there's multiple guns on the ship. They're kind of hidden because they have these little windows that are closed, but behind them they've got their cannons. So it says gun decks, cabins right here on the top. Rather than shoot from the unprotected open deck, musketeers fired from the great many loopholes, quote unquote, out of the cabins. Stern castle. So even just knowing the terminology is kind of important. So now for European warships. And this is really tough to draw if you are illustrating it especially for a graphic novel where you have to illustrate it from different angles and things like that on a span of many panels and pages. So trying to figure out how to simplify it is also important. So this one's a little bit different. Has a description of, even has the name of the ship, what it's called. Now we're getting into steam-powered ships. So this one has a side wheel steamboat. Iron steamship. The last great sailing ships. So this one is already in the 1800s, 1851 to 1896. So now we are in warships. They're really thin, or I think they're just long, really long compared to the other ships. That's why they look thin. The Alabama. Paddle-driven warships. '19th century screw-propelled warships, Part 1. So this is propeller-driven warships, but they also have sails. So the history of ships is really, really fascinating, right? Cruisers of the 1880s and 1890s. And a lot of it is just because they're ships from all over the world. So each part of the world, they have their own design, their own intentions when they're creating these ships. Passenger liners of the late 19th century. Early submarines. Oh, interesting. So as you can see, I haven't gone through this book in detail. This is the first time I'm seeing a lot of these pages here. Torpedo boats. So they're kind of, this looks like a boat. It has a sail, but it's, okay, this is a boat. So I guess it switched from submarine back to boats. I do wish that they mixed more of not just the side profiles, but more of 3/4, so you can see what it looks like from the front, or from, you know, from a 3/4 vantage point. Aircraft carriers to 1929. The Dreadnought. Cool name. A more advanced era of warship construction began, as well as British-German arms race. The first all-big gun capital ship made previous battleships obsolete. Every navy now had to have dreadnoughts. Dreadnought was scrapped in 1923, by which time it was itself obsolete. So it had 29-year lifespan for the Dreadnought before it became obsolete. So just these are different variations of the Dreadnought. It sounds like the Derflinger. Also created around the same time as a Dreadnought. German and Japanese battle cruisers. North Sea adversaries. Imperial Japan. Imperial Russia. South American neighbors and rivals. Cruisers of the 1900s, British. So it's a lot. If you're geeking out about ships, boats, this would be definitely one book to get. And I am by no means an expert on this. I'm just looking at it mostly from an artist's point of view and learning from it and incorporating what's interesting to me into my books. The development of the destroyer. Flotilla. Minesweepers. Now this is interesting. Mine layers and minesweepers. Nautical mines had a long history, but mass production in 1914 to 18 made them into a greater menace than ever before. Mine laying and minesweeping were among the more hazardous of routine tasks that naval ships had to undertake. Some sweepers were also fitted to lay mines, but the two activities were very different. So these are the mines that they put underwater that explode, right? So I guess there's ships specific to that, to laying out the mines and sweeping for them. Submarines. Ooh, that's cool. The Danzig, the U-9. Double-hulled boat, leader of a class of 4. It was responsible for sinking 4 British cruisers in the North Sea during October 1914. In 1916, it was listed for training duties. In 1918, it was handed over to Britain and scrapped in 1990. Kind of cool how the front almost reminds you of a shape of a whale. Like the whole ship is like a big whale or big fish. Submarines. Deutschland. U-151 class. Cargo carrying submarine built to beat the British blockade of German ports. Made 2 trips to the United States for rubber, nickel, and other high-value cargo before America entered World War I. It was renamed to U-155, later ceded to Britain. It was scrapped in 1922. Built as a training cargo ship. one of the fastest bulk cargo sailors. So this one we're already in 1902. 20th century sailing ships. Amerigo Vespucci. Dry cargo ships. The Titanic. Built in Belfast for the White Star Line, Titanic had a fate that has preserved its fame. On the night of April 14, 1912, while on a maiden voyage from Southampton to New York, it struck an iceberg at full speed and flooded. Although more than 2 hours elapsed before it sank, 1,500 passengers and crew from a total of 2,223 drowned. Ship types. The Enterprise. So we are already in 1931. How do you pronounce that? Scharnhorst? The Yamato. The Yamato and the Musashi were the largest, most powerful battleships ever. Each main turret weighed 18 tons. That's heavy. Guns could fire two 3,200-pound shells per minute over a distance of 45,000 yards. Used just once, they sank an escort carrier and a destroyer in 1944. Yamato was sunk in 1945. Wow. So this one, 1930, but it sank in 1945. Guess that's what happens when you're a battleship. Cruisers. Destroyers. Treble-class destroyer made a dramatic rescue of British prisoners from a German vessel in Norwegian waters in February 1940 and was part of a force pursuing Bismarck in May 1941. It also saw action with convoys to Malta before being sunk in the North Atlantic by U-563 in October 1941. More destroyers. Boy, we do build a lot of battleships, don't we? Italian destroyers. Italian and Japanese. I have to apologize, guys. Some of these pages, or I guess a lot of these pages, or all of them, are very kind of reflective when the light hits it. So it's a little difficult sometimes to get the angle right so the lighting will show correctly, or not show at all, so you can see the actual illustrations and the words. Back to submarines here. That's a cool shape. Ooh, U-47. This looks kind of cool, right? The color is very intimidating. This one is cool. You can see the top from the top point of view. Passenger liners. Might be good to look through this if you're going on a cruise. Ship types, 1950 to 1999. A significant development in this area was the digital computer and the advances in electronic technologies, which seized on ship design, construction, and operation. Oh yeah, now we've got aircraft carriers. See, this is cool because you can actually see from this perspective how things are placed. It has some cross section in here. Got the aircraft carriers, satellites. The planes are landed. It actually doesn't look that big if you look at the illustration of the person, how they're standing there. But that's a cool vantage point. I wish they did more in this book. But I guess there's only so many pages you can fill, right? So not every page could be like that. See, this one's cool. The Tarawa. Commissioned in 1976, equipped for air-land assault. Tarawa had a floodable well deck for landing craft and command and control facilities to undertake a flagship role. It was the first of a class of 5, all built within the space of a few years in response to perceived threats during the Cold War. USS Long Beach. The Cairo. Soviet cruisers. Destroyers. Destroyers. Trump. We got more of the mine hunters and sweepers here, but modern ones. Probably using radars, GPS, things like that, right? More modern submarines. They all look like torpedoes. The Resolution. Crew quarters, the hull, missile compartment, machinery, propulsion. That's really interesting stuff to know. Nuclear submarines. Support and repair ships. Bulk carriers. Ah, here you go. That's where all of your Amazon products go on to from overseas before they get shipped here or back and forth. Cruise ships. Oh, that's crazy. British car ferry. Takes up 200 cars and 776 passengers. Sea Spider. Funky name. James Clark Ross. Submersible craft. 21st century ships. Doesn't seem like there's a lot of them left here. We haven't made a lot of modern ships compared to the past, right? For transportation, we've got planes now. Probably like this one right here for drilling. And we've got the index and the glossary. That's it. So 448 pages to the last page. So Ships, the Visual Encyclopedia. More than 1,000 color illustrations by Amber Books. David Ross. Get your copy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.